Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me now? All right, you should be able to hear me now. Not anymore? Yep, cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. So weird. It gives me a green bar, says that we've got good sound, and then it doesn't work. And then I have to plug it in and out. It's very bizarre. Must be some kind of like anomaly with YouTube or something like that. So, since you couldn't hear me, welcome. Today is April 23rd, 2025. It is an unbelievably gorgeous day today. We're going to navigate together the world collapse of U.S. hegemony. We're going to talk about global events, what's going on in Ukraine. These are major, major updates. We're going to talk about commodities, the gold shock, the canary in the coal mine, as you all see gold trading at a new all-time high. Bitcoin, of course, above 94K. And what you couldn't hear, I was welcoming aboard a brand new member out of Canada. You know who you are, sir. Just came on with $200,000 into islandproject.com earlier this morning, signing his agreement. Mr. Michael D.B., you know who you are. Congratulations. It is an honor to serve. And I briefly wanted to give you an update because if you saw my video yesterday with my dad, you'll notice we were just about to go under contract Trump Tower Waikiki. Well, it wasn't official then when we recorded the video, but it is official now. So congratulations to all of our members. We are officially under contract, property number 6 with no bank debt. This is an extraordinary property. You're going to love it in the best location. And we're just so humbled by God and so excited for that development. So I did want to share that with you. So let's talk about what's going on. The first thing that I was recognizing this morning, and I tweeted this, is my long-standing prediction. This is pretty much one of my biggest, most major predictions of the whole lockdown hysteria, right? I predicted that, but I also predicted the Ukraine invasion. But I made a very specific prediction that at the end of the day, as a part of the art of the deal and the negotiation, that Vladimir Putin would actually be allowed to keep the new land that he annexed. He would be allowed to take the Crimean Peninsula, which he successfully has. He would be allowed to reclaim Sevastopol and the Black Sea Fleet, which is very strategic. He would be allowed to claim other lands. Now, what was coming out in the press earlier today, which actually was confirming this, is Trump now has an olive branch out doing just that. And so, one of the big things that I saw several years ago was not only how this was a geopolitical chess move in the global war, how this would also affect China and Taiwan, but I always believed that Ukraine would be split apart much like North and South Korea, which it's turning out that's actually what is going to happen. So again, you have to think about that Trump needs peace. He did promise peace on day one with Ukraine. So he's working to achieve that. And he also has bigger aims and a bigger mission, not only with Iran, but of course, what's going on with China and Taiwan. So a couple takeaways from that. Number one is, of course, you were lied to. Never trust your government at all. They completely lied to the American people about Ukraine somehow being, about defending Ukrainian democracy and giving the people freedom. It had nothing to do with that at all. Because the case in point is Ukraine and Zelensky that took all your money actually lost the war. It's been confirmed today that the negotiations actually will allow Vladimir Putin to keep his land so that he's annexed, proving that war was actually a very successful play. And as I said, people don't like to hear it, Putin actually won. So Putin won. Of course, all those trillions of dollars of wasteful taxpayer spending that you and your kids paid for with hyperinflation that you're never going to get back was for nothing. It was a total waste, just like Iraq and Afghanistan was a total waste. I mean, Joe Biden withdrew from freaking Afghanistan. They had nothing to do with 911 at all, right? They had nothing to do with that. So just like those wars were a waste and a scam, so was Ukraine. But what's interesting about it, of course, the American people do nothing. They keep getting ruined by an absolute hyperinflationary money printing debt bonanza, courteous of the central banks. And thus far, there's not been a president willing to end the central bank. I mean, Donald Trump even backed off on firing Jerome Powell earlier today, just playing a cat and mouse game. It's all about negotiations and rhetoric and just putting out certain messaging into the community. Hey, how you doing there, Matt? Asking me how I'm doing. I'm doing really well. How are you doing? Really good to see you. So the whole Ukraine war was just one giant money laundering scam, essentially by the Democrats. And of course, we know how much money that Joe Biden and his son, Hunter, the drug addict that, spent most of his time with prostitutes and had all these different kinds of problems, like those guys got paid. And that's all Ukraine was. Ukraine was a proxy war also as a testing ground, which I did tell you and warn you of this years ago, for World War III. They wanted to test all the new weapons of war, all the new drones run by Palantir. They wanted to test all these new advanced autonomous AI type technologies, the triangulation systems, the satellites in your sky, of course, run by Elon Musk, which are weapons. That's what they are. They're not there to deliver you faster internet. They're there to triangulate missiles as they literally send them hypersonic and make an attack, or launch drones into the skies, or run surveillance on the American people or on Ukrainians or Russians. And so I always explained that again, Ukraine would end this way. So there's going to be more developments throughout the remaining of the week. I do believe that we are, quote unquote, very close to a Ukraine peace deal. But again, it's going to be a give and a take and an ebb and a flow where Putin actually won. He gets to keep his land that he actually took, that the Democrats told us he stole, even though Ukraine is pretty much 90% like Russian, especially on the eastern seaboard. And at the end of the day, it's going to be split into a North-South Korea situation, proving that the whole war was wasteful, erroneous, and there was no point to it outside the Greece Congress and maybe the pockets of the dirty Democrats. So you know where I stand on this. I'm a libertarian. I am, anti these unnecessary conflicts, anti these, violations of our sovereignty and freedom. I am anti, anything that doesn't help with our own liberty and our own physical freedom, monetary sovereignty, dollar sovereignty. The list goes on and on. So, what's really interesting for us to all think about is the big reset that we all predicted, along with you here tuning in on this channel. We're living through it now. So this is the most disruptive, chaotic period, really in civilization's history, ever in our lifetimes. And we are going through the Great Reset. What a lot of people didn't realize, it would actually be Donald Trump who brought it in. And that's not to say it's good or bad, but I think a lot of people didn't realize it'd actually be Trump resetting the system. We had my dad on camera yesterday, was talking about how the tariffs are really a net negative short term. And I believe him to be 100% correct about that. It's not good at actually, short term at least. And I've said the same long before I even heard my father's commentary on it. It's only going to raise costs, make trade more difficult, and cause a lot of problems and a lot of economic shakeup. Case in point, we send hundreds and hundreds of our beautiful ball caps here as part of Digital Noah's Ark and IslandProject.com to our international investors. And yesterday, my provider that manufactures and customizes all these beautiful hats and our coffee mugs told me, "Hey, Chris, are you sure you want us to send all these international shipments?" He says, because all these, all this product going overseas is actually going to be subject to the tariffs. He told me that we're going to pay something like $30 in addition to the normal costs. And I want you to keep this in mind. This hat's like 30 bucks, something like that. But you're going to pay $30 on top of it as a result of the tariff wars. And I believe that even the individual accepting the actual shipment has to pay a fee. So that is one way, and I'm mostly digital, and we own real estate and Bitcoin and all those kinds of things. But that is one point I wanted to make, something that I've actually seen in the real world, where it's like, oh yeah, there actually is a dramatic consequence to the tariff. So I can't imagine what manufacturing companies are thinking right now, or how this is affecting big tech companies, or it's affecting supply chains, or it's affecting U.S. car manufacturing, employment, labor, et cetera. And we all know what Donald Trump is trying to do, but the point is it's going to be incredibly disruptive unless he's able to negotiate something that will move more free trade in an amicable way. So let's talk about what's been going on in the financial markets. So we did have big news with Trump coin today. It jumped up about 60%. That's Trump's meme coin, on the announcement that I think the top 200 hodlers will be invited to his dinner party or something like that. So huge jump. Donald Trump's team made the tweet, put it out across social media, and immediately Trump coin was trading 60% higher. just so people could, maybe attend dinner at Mar-a-Lago. I do know as well as a cryptocurrency expert that Trump's insiders and their team can now actively start selling the meme token itself. So we'll see if they start dumping here or if they allow this to ride a little bit higher. So that was a major development in the crypto space. Also, the US stock market was up about 400 points today. It was kind of yo-yoing back and forth in trade. I think it was up as high as about 1,000, but then cooled off. The other real big thing that we need to look at is the US dollar, which this was a very common misconception. So many prognosticators and economists, all the pundits said that Donald Trump's tariff policies would actually strengthen the Dixie, otherwise known as the US dollar index. Well, the reality has been the exact opposite. The US dollar has been dumping, declining, meaning your purchasing power is being eroded. It is being absolutely destroyed. And that's my point. The trend of hyperinflation, economic collapse, bailouts into infinity, martial law lockdowns like 2020, massive surveillance, stealing of your liberty and freedom, endless wars that mean nothing, total failures like Ukraine, Iraq, and Afghanistan will continue. And back, great leaders like Ron Paul are echoing right now my same exact concerns, proving the point that this really is the greatest disruptive period economically, financially, sociologically, and even physically. As the target in 2020, we all know what that was about, right? It was about managing populations and people. We've also seen some very symbolic events recently with, of course, Klaus S. I can't say his name to beat the algorithm, stepping down at the three-letter thing I can't say. It's a free country here, but we're not allowed to say certain words, right? But Klaus S. stepped down. Also, the Pope is no longer with us. He miraculously died on Easter Monday at 88 years old, which, by the way, is very occult and symbolic. It's the year of the snake, too, by the way. And what does the infinity sign look like, or 8-8? Well, it actually looks like a snake. They are looking for several replacement figures. One of them appears to be a dark-colored skinned man. And of course, that would actually fulfill a lot of what prophecy had foretold, or many prognosticators had been expecting regarding the Catholic Church. So I'm actually curious your opinion on that. I'm sure a lot of you have been looking into that. Maybe you have some information around that. But what do you think that signifies as we now enter 2025? So let me ask you a question. Since Biden and Trump have both been in power, Trump 1, Biden 2, Trump 2, has hyperinflation stopped? No. Both of those people have been in power. Have the wars stopped? Not yet, at least. There's probably going to be a new one with Iran. Are you more free or less free after the lockdowns of 2020 when Trump was in power? Less free. All those emergency actions that were taken, just like 911, are now permanent. Just like the body scanners at the airport, just like the emergency actions that were taken during the presidential directive order of 2020. For those of you who don't know, and I repeat it again, but all the big companies, the ones around the topic, that we're not allowed to discuss, actually are still out and free and in the clear with zero legal liability well throughout 2030. So I want you to just understand there's no emergency anymore, right? The lockdowns have been lifted. There's no presidential executive like action, martial law. There's no pandemonium in the streets or anything. But notice how the legislation and the executive orders and the laws that they put to paper are still in effect permanently. So this is a common thing that many of you need to understand, that I've always said it's a death by 1,000 cuts, even since the day of Greene wave. A lot of people are like, well, they're just trying to protect us and keep us safe or whatever. But what it turns out to be is it's an abuse of power. It's just like the microchips that are going into people's heads by Synchron and Precision Technologies, by Neuralink. Even if Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all these people are the best individuals in the world, and they're just really great people and they want the best for humanity, all it takes is one psychotic despot to take that actual technology and weaponize it into the mark. So even if you think those guys are good, I'm telling you that a very bad person will soon rise even if it's not those individuals, and they will weaponize it into the mark of the beast and all of these things that we're, of course, very concerned about as Christians. So, every day is kind of entertaining too, in a way. I mean, Donald Trump just spouts his mouth like every single day. He's always yelling at people, calling Jerome Powell a loser. I mean, I don't know how Christian like that is, but Christians seem to love it. I mean, slamming Zelensky left and right. I mean, calling people bad names and just, I get it. I understand it's WWE and it's entertainment, but I also think it's kind of funny. Tariff this, tariff that, then he reverses the tariffs. Then there's a pause. And I told you he would do that. This was just all a part what he had up his sleeve to essentially manage these negotiating tactics and essentially reset the system into the new one. So here's what I probably should have titled the video, and you should like and share. Like, the big news is Donald Trump is about to make a stunning announcement that will literally shatter US dollar hegemonic order and power unlike anything we've ever seen in global history. This will make the Bretton Woods event that set the tone for the current economic financial system look like child's play compared to what Donald Trump is about to establish. Whether you like it or not, this truly is a new order. And we must understand and think about this too, as I've espoused to all of you tuning in, that the new system is not going to be anything like old America. And so you really need to wrap your head around this. Again, the 10 kingdoms are being built. United States of America is going to expand its borders potentially with Canada and Greenland for national security, for mineral rights, and also defense and militarization of the region, as we want more control of shipping lanes and also some advantages in the Arctic. So the old America is going away. And this is kind of what I always thought was the double-edged sword and the misconception with the whole idea of MAGA, although I believe that, and I'm rooting for Trump, albeit he's imperfect. But it's not like we're making America great again. We're actually creating an entirely new America. And that's what you need to understand. I fully expect Donald Trump to make a surprise emergency shock announcement, pandemonium on Wall Street. He could freeze the financial markets for a period of days. Banks will close, and it'll all be around a new Mar-a-Lago Accord and some kind of new reset into the global order, as there's a shock announcement that now the White House and the Treasury has been actively shock buying Bitcoin. They have plans to buy over 1 million Bitcoin. So does every other country in the world, whether or not it's El Salvador or anyone else. So I just want you to think about this. Like, the old system's dead. It's never coming back. The quality of life will be nothing like it was before. It's going to be a continued dollar collapse, a continued wealth transfer, continued hyperinflation, continued instability, endless, perpetual infant war. And it's going to be a lot of instability and a lot of destabilization. And it doesn't matter who's in charge or who's in power. This is the natural direction of the new system, the new order. Think about it from the perspective of what would Donald Trump even do anyways? If he's got to compete with China and the rise of dictators, keep in mind there's no election over there, so he's just in power, Xi Jinping, for the rest of his days. He's a king god. So how can Donald Trump compete if he's only in office for a brief 4 years? You can't. How do you compete with Vladimir Putin when you're literally just a perpetual leader? These guys can run the long game. They can play long-term strategy. They can militarize entire economies and militaries over decades, over 100 years, if they live that long. Donald Trump's just got 4. That's it. So he's got an uphill battle. And I think whether, people like it or not, just like my father said, it's clear what he's doing. This is the reset. So welcome to the big reset. I think the surprise is most people didn't think it would be Trump or a Republican that would usher it in. Musk will also be taking a back seat, he said, playing a little bit more defense. He won't be as much in the public eye, according to him, regarding the White House and the fact that he's been basically bunk buddies, like living in a bunk bed at the White House, like full time, and also Mar-a-Lago. Tesla's been reporting some significant downwardly revised numbers. I do expect that to change at some point. I mean, we have to keep in mind that Elon Musk's bet to fund Donald Trump was a bet on himself and his own company. So I fully expect Elon Musk to be the world's soon to be first trillionaire. I would expect him to have more power in aggregate world domination of even any political figure. I would argue that Musk and people like Peter Thiel are far more powerful than Donald Trump, far more powerful. And of course, they're not politicians, so they'll just lead pretty much in a corporate way, kind of covertly behind whoever they put in charge, whatever puppet, the next Democrat puppet or the next Republican puppet, whatever it might be. I always found it interesting too that both Trump and Musk were both Democrats, but then they became Republicans. And then Trump kind of went towards Christianity, which is great. And I totally commend him on that. But it's like they never were that before, right? I mean, before it was like the complete opposite: supermodels, golden toilets, and flossing like P. Diddy, hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, and Democrat, to funding the Clintons, to then becoming a Republican and converting over to the political vacuum, which happens to be really popular because, again, what's popular is MAGA. What's popular is freedom. What's popular is the antithesis of the mainstream media. And Donald Trump's very smart in terms of being able to kind of soak up that vacuum, just like he's done with Bitcoin. Hated Bitcoin, didn't like it, called it a scam. Now he's the Bitcoin king, right? So he kind of looks for trends. He's never really a first mover, honestly. He's a second mover. So he kind of sees where the vacuum is, the political vacuum, the economic vacuum. Then he jumps on and moves in with full force, which is something he's honestly very, very talented in doing. So what does this mean for you and your money? Again, the dollar's done. You're toast. Banks will continue to collapse. There's going to be massive executive emergency orders declared by the president soon. There's going to be more war. There's going to be surprise strafing and attacks on Iran. I guarantee that Israel and the United States are going to light it up over there. 100%. Putin won. There'll be some kind of peace deal drafted. And eventually there's going to be some kind of confrontation with China. Now, I do expect Donald Trump to completely backtrack on most of his egregious draconian tariffs. And the reason is, if he doesn't, Americans' shelves will be empty the next several years. I want you to think about how damning these tariffs are. If Donald Trump keeps the pace of the current aggressive tariffing of countries like China, there will literally be a depression in the United States of America. Shelves will be empty at every grocery store. Trump would have to establish price controls like the collapse of the USSR. You won't be able to get certain products or cars or computers. So we already know, baked into the pie, that most of this is talk, and he's going to backtrack ease. And we even saw Bessent, who of course is a George Soros lackey, right? Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, helped to collapse the British pound with what many Republicans think is the most evil man in the world. I mean, so many conservatives, Alex Jones and everyone, they think George Soros is the most evil scum. But who's in charge of the Treasury? Who did Donald Trump put in power? Scott Bessent, who is literally like the right-hand man, along with Drunken Mueller and others over at the Quantum Fund or Soros Management. I just think it's funny because so many people, they're so diabolical in this fake political realm, but they have no problem if these evil people are actually put in power when we're supposedly draining the swamp. So again, why was Bessent put into power? I talked about this in Waikiki because he's in charge of the Trump Dream Team to do what? Do exactly what he did along with George Soros with the British pound and the event that we had at the Suez Canal that turned out to be a failure of England, from what I understand from the history books. And they're going to do the same thing, collapsing the US dollar. So the US dollar is a 2.0 upgradable, soon to be tokenized currency that Donald Trump is going to usher in. Let's take a brief look at the crypto markets. Of course, I'm extremely bullish. I'm so thankful, so happy to see reserve rights token. It's my number one pick. I'm fully expecting it to skyrocket. We saw tons of new liquidity come to the market yesterday. It was up double digits, just listed at Coinbase. It's now trading under just below $500 million market cap. And I fully expect short term, it to sail between $5 to $10 billion in market capitalization. Then I think it'll sail above $100 billion in market capitalization. Let me check the volume on that. It's very interesting to look at that because Coinbase Exchange has now added, volume, for example, is about 2.5 million. So there's a whole new volume pickup that never existed and an accessibility to buying RSR that was hard before, but that now will go mainstream. Just like Trump coin today earlier this morning, I was happy and pleased to see it. I saw Donald Trump, do his tweet, and then it pumped 60%. A lot of you will miss the pump. The pumps happen instantly, in a single second, in a single day. I fully expect Bitcoin itself to have a shock 100K plus day itself, not to the 100K marker. Like I'm talking, it adds 100,000. So it goes from 100K to 200K instantly. All it'll take is an announcement by a sovereign wealth fund, a nation state, another country, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, etc., to make a surprise reveal that just like Michael Saylor has been leveraging debt to buy Bitcoin and crypto, but mostly Bitcoin in his case, governments will do that as well. Again, your money is fake and it's not worthless and it's a scam and it's a fraud, which is why it's not worth anything. And it's why there's so much hyperinflation and the cost of living isn't going to go down ever. It's only going to go up. The big reset is an affordability crisis. This is what I explained to everybody years ago, and I've been proven correct about that. Real estate's at new all-time highs, especially in the best locations in the world. Food and services and rents and healthcare and things like that are at all-time highs. Prices haven't come down. And I ask you that question again, has it even mattered who was in charge? No. So at the end of the day, I always like to go back to the Economist magazine and the cover of the 2025 year ahead with Donald Trump. And I like to look at it, and I encourage you to pull this up because you can kind of see what the elites are always going to do next. And I'll study this stuff for like hours. And I noticed that in the image of Trump, who's in the center of, by the way, 33, yeah, that's right, 33 edges. Let me show this to you. It won't come out that good because we're just kind of doing this video on the fly. But see all those bricks? That references like the BRICS nations, but there's 33 points. And what does that look like to you? I can't actually say it, but it was that thing floating around. In 2020, the bat turd, right? The bat poo. It was a conspiracy before, but no, Donald Trump in the White House just came out the other day and said, yeah, it was the dirty bat poo. But anyways, if you look at Donald Trump here, you can see that the US dollar's all around him. There's, of course, the Illuminati all-seeing eye. There's Saturn at the top, referencing the occult. There's a burning sun. There's a nuclear event soon to hit. Putin, Ukraine. There's an atom splitting, referencing the human internet of human takeover. There's one of those things I'm not allowed to talk about. That hasn't ended. I actually didn't think this would be the case. I mean, you always know they're going to pull another fast one, but we definitely could have a plague, like a real one soon. I actually think that they would do that. The goal, as many of us have known for some time, is depopulation. That's what they want. And they also want to, I can't say it again, it sucks supposedly living in this free country, not being able to speak your mind. I apologize, but I actually can't say these words. But how can I kind of like cloak what I'm going to say in the free states of the USA, SSA here? They've changed the code, right? So that's the goal. That's a form of depopulation. It's, arguably euthanasia. It's a type of eugenics. So, this is why they don't want you eating meat. This is why the global oligarchical class has been buying every company across every industry, across food and farms, and basically all systems of control and power that only honestly like Dr. Evil would have a wet dream over. And again, no checks and balances. American people don't care at all. No pitchforks, nothing. They just allow it to run rampant. I mean, look at the Ukraine war. What a waste. You just blew trillions of dollars of your kids' money and taxpayer funds, and the war's now about to end. And guess what? Putin gets to keep the land, proving my point once again. Donald Trump hasn't brought charges against any of the supposed swamp at all. No one's going to jail. Didn't release anything of significance with the JFK files. Nothing. A total nothing burger. I mean, honestly, I'm sure he's facing a lot of dark suits, and I'm sure he's been threatened. I mean, obviously, like, look at Butler, Pennsylvania. But again, this whole thing is just a racket at this point. So I'll close with that. April 23rd, 2025, General Greene here out of beautiful Hawaii. I'll have some very important updates and a beach walk. And again, we are closing the founders round. We just went under contract our beautiful new Waikiki Trump Tower. That just happened yesterday. We just got confirmation out of Tokyo. We picked up an absolute steal. All of you are going to love it. I encourage you to get your money out of the banks like your life depends on it. I encourage you to, again, fill out an app, just like we had our wonderful gentleman come in earlier this morning with 200 grand out of Canada. For those of you who don't know, we have members in 12 different countries, more than 12, and we have a huge Canadian base too, and we love you so much. And we have people from everywhere, like amazing countries, not just in Europe, but Fiji and Samoa, and of course the Pacific Islands here, and so many other just great places. And I guess where our hope we know is in Jesus, but also what we're fighting for too as liberty and freedom fighters is solutions that will actually put you on offense during this economic financial chaos and pivotal disruptive events and emergency executive orders and actions and collapse of the system and hyperinflation and the safety net of universal basic income after they transfer all the wealth to the super elites and they basically create a new feudal peasant class, which is pretty much where we already are. So as we enter the event singularity horizon, microchips in people's brains, robots in everyone's homes, lack of freedom, molestation, at your airports, no legal liability for the biggest Fortune 100 whores that exist in corporate America, no one being prosecuted and the swamp not being drained one iota. It should just be a healthy reminder that what you should be focused on is taking care of you and your own, strengthen your community, getting right with God. I encourage you to go to church, go to a Bible church, and read your Bible, and go to a Bible-based church, and then flock together with other Christians and like minds, and don't do it alone, and join us at islandproject.com. An amazing vision and an amazing success. And I do want to thank my father, as he was speaking to yesterday. It really is a beautiful victory. So I got to go. I love you. God bless you. And Jesus Christ is King.